To hire drivers, you've got to work fast and smart. Did you know Driver Pulse, a driver-facing mobile app from 10th Street, is 2 to 3 times more effective than texting and 4 to 5 times more effective than email at getting drivers to respond? Driver Pulse is the largest source of free driver applications in trucking, downloaded by almost 2 million drivers to find jobs, complete training, and communicate with carriers. Companies find who they're looking for, and drivers find their homes with Driver Pulse from 10th Street. A name you trust. That's 10street.com, TEN street.com.
Welcome back to another edition of Check Call. Today we're covering the jump to brokerage one certain LTL carrier made. Don't forget to subscribe to Check Call, the newsletter on FreightWaves.com if you haven't already. Today we are joined by Craig Lau, the Director of Strategic Planning at A.W. Pyle. Welcome to the show, Craig.
Good morning, Mary.
We are fresh off of our adventure at Cleveland, running into each other, listening to a really interesting 80s cover band. I'm going to say they were just very interesting. They put on one heck of a show.
Absolutely. It was definitely an experience.
Before we jump into this topic today, let's get some background on you and kind of how you started at A.W. Pyle.
Yeah, so I guess my whole supply chain journey, like many, was completely on accident. I was in college, marketing major, and was going to graduate in 4 years, but I blew out my knee the January before my senior year of football and had started the first 3 years. So there was no way I was going to miss that last season. So then all of a sudden I had to figure out, well, how can I stay on campus an extra semester? And so I had remembered these, had some different professors coming around and they just started a supply chain program. So got a little information on it. And, I went back and I talked to my parents and I had a partial scholarship. It was like, hey, I'm really interested in supply chain, and that works for me staying an extra semester to finish out that last year of football. So, here I am. Part of that as well. I didn't really know what a 3PL at the time was, but I was starting to hear 3PLs. And with the marketing degree, like, well, I want to sell 3PL. It just sounded really cool. So, did an internship. And then, after graduation, I ended up going to work for, one of the larger brokers out there. Spent 16 years and moved multiple times, a lot of different roles, and made some really good relationships along the way. And then in 2019, it was time for me to move on, and ended up needing to spend a little bit of time out of the industry. So I took a 7-month mini retirement / vacation, whatever you want to call it, and got a call from an old friend who was at a final mile startup that was doing couches and television deliveries on pickup trucks. It's called Dolly. So basically like Uber, but you go to buy a couch or a television and you can't get it home. They come in like 90 minutes later. So he reached out and said, hey, what do you think? And that was a really cool experience along the way. Got to, sit in on product meetings and just areas that I had never been exposed to before about, how a business runs beyond the, beyond the A to B of transactions. And then late 2021, I reached out to Frank at A.W. Pyle, who's one of the chief operating officers, and said, hey, I'm interested in Pyle because I'd had some really good experiences years ago. Whenever I would route shipments, customer service, always was happy. And, it's transportation, so stuff will happen from time to time, but there was always a plan and just, that level of comfort that I had shipping with Pyle all those years ago, kind of pushed me forward. And here we are today.
I love it. It's a nice windy journey, but you got there. I also love that you, like many others, have found yourself accidentally in supply chain and then unable to get out of it. As a fellow marketing major that found her way into not knowing what a 3PL was to suddenly knowing way too much about them. To me, it's a cool club to be in, but I'm a little biased.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And like once you get in, you just can't get out. Anybody that tries, usually a year or two later, they get sucked right back in.
100%. It happened to me. I tried to sell kitchen cabinets and design kitchens and got tired of that. And I was like, well, let's go find a new job. And then in a second, you have supply chain written on a resume. You don't, you just get all those phone calls.
Absolutely.
So one of the things you kind of touched on is as a former LTL pricing analyst, I I have thoughts about every single LTL carrier. We are not going to go through them all because that will probably get me in a lot of trouble. But A2E Pile was one of my favorites, mostly because I did not hear about you guys at all, which in the world of pricing and procurement, if I don't hear about you, you're doing a good job. That means you're picking up stuff on time, you're billing correctly, everything like that. So to me, Pile was always a top 10 carrier because you guys made my life easy. But now you guys have kind of done something a little different and you're, I guess, leading the charge on it. And that is you're more than just an LTL carrier now. You guys have kind of jumped into the freight brokerage thing. How does that first of all, how does that work? And then how do you go source a carrier and be like, or not a carrier, how do you go source a customer and be like, but no, we're not an LTL carrier anymore, but we definitely still are.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in addition to brokerage and LTL, Pile has 17 warehouses. We also have a fleet of 600 dedicated trucks. So, Pile is really moving to more of that integrated supply chain solution. Granted, everybody knows us as LTL, like you mentioned, but our brokerage has actually been around for 10 years. So, this is by no means a come right in. There's been a really solid foundation that's been laid, and three of the ladies that we have that started it are actually still with us today, and combined for 76 years of experience at Pile. So, yeah, I mean, how many other brokers can you walk on a floor and find not one but two people that have 30 years with a team? So, that the foundation was definitely already there, and I think the biggest thing for us is trying to complement what our LTL group does, what our warehouse and what dedicate, and not trying to bite off more than we can chew. Our messaging to customers is we want to be a go-to source for anything that's originating in the Pile footprint. Whether it's a short haul or long haul, Virginia up to Maine, over to Ohio, that's going to be our bread and butter. And we do have great options for you, as you expand to, east of the Mississippi. But part of that too is if somebody's trying to move, Colorado to Utah flatbed or something that's completely out of our wheelhouse, we're up front. And that, from the customer standpoint about, okay, you're LTL, but wait, now you want to do truckload, that transparency has gone really far. And we've had a lot of examples where we'll get, somebody wants us to look at a pricing sheet and then we send it back and like, well, you only quoted 30% of what's on there. Well, yeah, that's the 30% we want. That's the 30% that we're going to add value. And then it's okay. Well, you really plan on covering the freight. Yeah.
Yeah. That's one of those where like you send it back and they're like, but you didn't fill everything out. And you're like, I didn't stutter. That's not what I knew.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, so that's part of it. Like we have more of a defined focus and really like our relaunch. So we had our grand opening in Mechanicsburg 2 days ago. And really our focus is around people and just building off of that. We're not trying to shove technology on somebody. We're not trying to be the broker that says, I want to cover loads on Christmas morning instead of opening presents with my kids. Like we're designing it all around the Pile people. And then from there, that's where we feel the customer is going to have a world-class experience because the employees are happy.
So kind of the approach that maybe a 3PL or a freight broker that specializes in produce takes, you guys are like, no, we do what we do and we do it well. What we don't do, that flatbed in Idaho is going to sit there for a bit. If we're not going to touch it.
Yeah, no, your double drop with A-frames.
So I guess since you guys know really, that kind of touched on one of the things I wanted to ask you about is, when you go looking for new customers or new shippers or something like that, do you specifically go look for some that are looking to, get a hold on their LTL, or do you guys also, do have some strong truckload stuff? What does that profile of like your perfect shipper look like? Tell us about your long walks on the beach with a shipper.
Perfect shipper for brokerage is going to be that 53-foot swing door drive in, originating in the Northeast. Get us some nice miles on there, some nice lead time, and pays their invoices quick. That's the perfect shipper. But I think as far as creating new relationships, we have this great benefit of getting like 4,000 pile employees. So everybody's out there. There's tons of freight that's flowing through our system now. And our account managers on the LTL side, our national account managers for LTL, our warehouse and distribution team, they're all really good about helping with introductions along the way. And then our existing the freight brokers that we've added. So in addition to working with existing clients, they're also prospecting and looking for that long walk on the beach shipper that you were just talking about.
I like it. You guys kind of have that united approach of, this is what we're looking for. These are our ideals, and this is that kind of margin that deviation that we'll take on each side. Because ideally, every broker, every person ever shipping would love someone that has stackable freight that's indestructible. Quick unload times, pays in like 24 hours. All the perfect qualities.
Oh yeah, but I mean, reality of it is we take, a lot of same day shipments just like everybody else is, and everything from perfectly stackable to 20-foot crates and really, everything in between there. So if it'll go on a 53-foot dry van, doesn't have crazy crazy expectations. Let's go for it. But so much too is when we're approaching the market, we have that 99-year pile reputation. So, we try to eliminate as many variables out there where other brokers might want to take a risk. We want to make sure that we're providing the same level of service in brokerage, in LTL, in warehousing, and in dedicated that stands up to the pile man.
You guys like that. You guys like to live in that moderate risk of like, the risk isn't that big, but I'm also not, calling flatbed trailers in Idaho looking for something. You're like, this is what we do. If it goes outside there, it can be just outside, but not in Idaho.
Absolutely. And the great thing is there's a lot of real estate east of the Mississippi that we can target.
Look, like east of the Mississippi is a wild time. It's a wild time. I guess when it comes down to like prospecting and cold calling and, out there finding your shipper, what's kind of your go-to approach? Like if I were to say like, hey, if you could give me a list of 10 shippers to call tomorrow, what would be your first approach to go find a shipper? Or maybe not necessarily, just kind of, what would be your first approach?
So like entrance strategy. So we're using a variety of methods. We still believe in cold calls, picking up the phone. It's amazing. People do still answer the phone, which is kind of cool. So we'll start with that. We will shoot, your standard emails. And really the goal with that messaging is to keep it very short and sweet because, most people have heard of the A2A pile that are in the, shipping industry. So we don't have to explain, XYZ company, the name comes with, a lot of weight behind it. You also using social media connections, and people buy in so many different ways now. It's it's crazy. So we've had examples of shippers that not have a great success on cold calls or emails, but they'll like our post on LinkedIn, or somebody will post something about like donuts in the office, and the next thing a shipper's liking it, and like, okay, well, they're seeing pile.
If you have us, we can send donuts to your office.
We love donuts. Definitely love donuts. So really, it's it's about approaching it in a variety of ways, and then in some cases too, you have just knocking on the front door and, "Hi, I'm Craig from A2E Pile," and believe it or not, that works. That still works as well. And the benefit that we have, most brokers are really concentrated in one area. So if they're trying to sell all over the place, they don't have the force on the ground. Versus we have our brokers, we have our LTL team that can help out. So if there's a shipper that we're trying to get a hold of, hey, are you in the area? Yeah, great, no problem. I'll try to leave a card. So that definitely helps as well.
I like it. I feel like that also is, I'm not going to say like a cheat code, but it's definitely like a slight flex when you're like, oh yeah, we're A2E Pile. You already know us because we probably already handle your LTL stuff. Just go ahead and let us handle the rest of it too with the hair flip. I feel like you have to have a lethal hair flip there, Craig.
It's an amazing advantage, but with that advantage also comes responsibility. So we have to make sure that day in and day out, because our actions are they reflect upon all of our other groups. So we definitely have a a high standard for for execution and communications.
Yeah, that's definitely one of those things that, you have that reputation. You've worked so hard all these years to maintain it. So now getting into the brokerage side of things, you don't want to be the reason that, suddenly A2E Pile brokerage gets a bad name. Well, if brokerage is going down and not servicing well, does a LTL fight like on its heels? And so that's definitely kind of almost that double-edged sword of, it gets you in the door, but your expectations are already up here. Whereas another broker, it might just be like, oh, you picked up on time.
And you know what? Communication also goes a long way, because the truckload market is an imperfect industry. And just constantly staying up to date with all of our shippers, progress on everything. And if a hiccup occurs, not just saying, hey, here's the hiccup, but here's the plan. And here's what we're going to do. That that goes along so well to help address any exceptions.
So you, a free broker, just went on the record saying that you do communication and that you will be honest with your shipper. What a novel concept that you have there, Craig.
Yeah, it's winning. It's helping to win business.
It really, really does. More often than not, people who are like, oh, well, we're just not going to tell our shipper that their freight's been lost for a couple hours, until they call and they're like, hey, where's my freight? And you're like, it's on its way. But every time someone tries to hide something, I'm like, this is not going to work. They're going to find out, and then they're going to get mad because this is the first time that they've caught you lying to them. But how many times have you done it before? And that's where that like, nobody wants to make that phone call. As much as the shipper doesn't want to hear that something happened to their freight, nobody wants to make that phone call. But that phone call to be like, hey, something happened. Don't worry. This is our plan. This is how we're going to do it. And we're going to let you know when it's rectified. That to me is worth its weight in gold versus just not telling a shipper and hoping they don't find out.
Yeah. Years ago, a former customer, going through how to, I would say like a medium-sized problem, but was being solved. And he said, thank you. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, we're working on fixing it. All right. Bad news doesn't get better with age. And, that really, I was always, trying to be upfront with everybody if there's any issues along the way, but that really stuck with me over all the years. Communication.
It's so easy. It takes like 5 minutes to actually just pick up the phone. It's like pulling off that Band-Aid. It's going to suck, but chances are you already have a plan, and you're like, just give me like an hour or two and I'll have this problem fixed, and I'll follow up with you, and it'll be like nothing ever happened. But that just continues to build that trust and that relationship with that shipper. So that way, if somebody else comes knocking, they are less likely to jump and be tempted.
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of things, if you look at the industry as a whole, many wounds are self-inflicted, and a lot of it really comes back to carrier selection. So we really pride ourselves in selecting quality carriers. And, on the shipper side, the Pile reputation helps, but on the carrier side, it helps so much as well, because they see our trucks going down the road. They understand that we're in the exact same, thing that they are. And, even from like the small things we do, like you're trying to pay quicker than everybody else. And just, thank you. Appreciate you moving the load, trying to build more extra capacity. That goes a long way. And, particularly in the freight cycle that we're in right now, a lot of people are breaking relationships out there, or just, trying to, load carriers that they haven't before. So much of that goes back to, not making self-inflicted wounds, working with good partners, and then you're going to get better results in the long run.
100%. I have realized over the past few weeks that 2023, the key word is just relationship building. Like, it's all about the relationships with your carriers, your shippers, everything. Like, this is when the times were good and we were printing our own money, times were good. But now we're not in those times. So you have to be careful not to, try and pull one over on somebody, or, damage any relationships that you had. So that way your customers can continue to get that level of service that they have grown accustomed to, and at the price point that they've grown accustomed to.
It's basically it's long-term decisions. And that was, to me, that was a great thing about joining Pile. We're a family-owned company, so we're not reacting by the quarter, or, hey, this is a trendy thing in the news cycle. We're trying to build for the decade and the next generation. So with that in mind, it enables us to make a lot of decisions that are going to benefit us in the future.
Right. You guys are playing the long game of that short-term sacrifice, long-term game in the future, which honestly is probably the best way to do it. But you guys are just doing it pretty good. So we are running out of time, but there is a question that everyone that comes on the show has to answer. And are you ready for it? Awesome. Craig, is a hot dog a sandwich?
No, hot dog is not a sandwich. I think that, if you look at like a dog and a wolf, they're close in nature, and a hot dog and a sandwich are close in nature. But you look at a cheesesteak, hamburger, others along those lines, those are not sandwiches. So I can't sit here and tell you that I think a hot dog is a sandwich.
I absolutely love that. I am also team not a sandwich. It's a hot dog. You don't go to a deli and get a hot dog. You go to a deli and get a sandwich. But,
Where did you get that question?
Actually, I've asked this for quite a while, just like in my life. And I just decided to start asking people because, what do you do after a long interview? You can't take yourself too seriously because it's just supply chain. At the end of the day, we're moving stuff around. So we gotta really get down to the nitty gritty of what people want. And, it's just a nice, silly question to end our day on.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for inviting me on the show.
You're welcome. If somebody wants to challenge your hot dog as a sandwich opinion, or if they, want to slide into those DMs for some good LTL services, or a shipper maybe your perfect shipper has heard your plea, where can they find you outside the show?
Yeah, so they can find me at clau@adeweypile.com, or reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I can connect you with anyone on the team to help you out.
Awesome. Perfect shippers. You heard it here first. Craig's DMs are open. He is accepting them. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks, Craig.
Find Check All the Podcasts anywhere you get your podcasts, like Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Don't forget to check out all the other incredible FreightWaves podcasts, such as Tracks Through Time and Truck Tech. Don't forget to subscribe to the newsletter on freightwaves.com/checkcall. See you on the internet.